Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. I have to do a little catch-up here. I recently received a copy of Sorabji. You remember him? Sorabji. Kaikozru Shapurji Sorabji's Toccata Terza of 1955 for piano. And that meant that I finally had to talk about the Toccata Secunda, which I've been listening to, and I'm working on the Toccata Terza too. Actually, I'm sort of done with both of them since I've come to know what to expect. Let's just cut to the chase, shall we? Sorabji sounds like an autistic chimpanzee playing 1950s lounge music. I mean, that's what it is. The Toccata Secunda consists of, let's get this straight, it's 2.5 hours, a little jeu d'esprit, as he put it. Yes, 2.5 hours of chromatic sludge. And it's wonderfully performed here, I think, by Abel Sánchez-Aguilera, who's a splendid pianist and a biochemist, and he's very gifted, and he's obviously dedicated a lot of time and attention to playing music, which is technically extraordinarily difficult. And what's the point? This is junk. It really is. Verdi once said, I may not be a learned composer, but I am a very experienced one. Well, Sorabji was neither learned nor experienced. He wrote these enormous pieces of music, but, and I know he has his fans. I recently saw a comment from someone who said, I've been listening to it endlessly and I finally understand it. Well, okay, great. It's not hard to understand. The issue is not understanding it. The issue is why you want to bother. Why spend the time? Anybody can write, a free fugue on 5 voices that lasts 32 minutes. As you have here. I could do it. I really could. But why would I want to? What's the point? And that's the question I keep asking myself as I listen to this thing. This toccata has, 10 sections, all right? You have a toccata prelude. The prelude is 15 minutes long, just the prelude. And then you have a prelude chorale, which is a prelude after the prelude, and that's 17 minutes long. Then you have a little scherzo that has occasional references to other pieces and things. It's kind of witty. And an aria, which you'd be really hard-pressed to hear anything song-like about, and an ostinato. 21 minutes of an ostinato. Which is really sort of a Passacaglia type thing, actually. But why would you want to hear a 21-minute ostinato? Or it's going plinkety, plinkety, plink for 21 minutes. And then a nocturne. And Sorabji's soft, quiet music is some of his most beautiful stuff. That's the more lounge than the autistic chimpanzee part. But after 14 minutes of it, you want to kill yourself. Then there's a perpetual motion interlude and a cadenza. Then the 32-minute 5-part fugue, followed by a 10-minute coda, stretta, which uses the fugue subjects all overlapping. It's stretta-wise. It's so predictable, first of all. It is totally monotonous rhythmically. It really is. It just goes on endlessly with patterns and patterns of notes that because they're in this sort of strange chromatic, harmonic, purgatory, we would call it, where it's neither here nor there. It's just, bleh. It's very fatiguing to listen to. It really is. And I've really listened to this. And like I said, now, again, I know that there are people who will say, he wrote some beautiful things. Yes, he did. He wrote some lovely miniatures, real miniatures, mini miniatures. He wrote enormous things. And there are sections where you hear evocative ideas and textures and sounds and harmonies. All of those things are in his music. But if we go back to our chimpanzee metaphor, let the poor dear bang on a keyboard for long enough and eventually something nice is going to pop out. The issue is not his ability to occasionally come up with an entrancing idea. The issue is his utter inability to do anything with them, number one, and his completely defective sense of timing. Really, 2.5 hours? For what? I mean, what do we achieve in 2.5 hours? Where is it going? What is it doing? And he writes a bunch of these things. And anybody can write a Passacaglia in 175 variations. I can do it. We can all do it. It doesn't take any particular musical mastery. We have a tendency. Just talking about this is making my cat scream. Come on, Mildred. We have a tendency to mythologize musical composition, to mythologize things that we can't do, and to give the people who do them a tremendous amount of leeway and freedom. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I really do, because we all have to understand that there may be means of expression that we can't comprehend, or that I can't comprehend, and that other people do, and that they're more than welcome to enjoy them as much as they like. And I have no issue with any of that. I really don't. But I really also think that at the end of the day, there are certain facts. Some of those facts have to do with musical proportion, with contrast, with shape and phrasing and distinction of ideas, and that all of those things are really facts at the end of the day. You may not like the slow movement of Mozart's 21st Piano Concerto, the Elvira Madigan. You may not like it. You may think it's horrible, but you're not going to deny that it contains an exquisitely beautiful tune by any normative definition of those concepts. And that's what we're really talking about here, because, Sorabji wrote tons and tons of music and had no opportunity to hear it other than in his head, or as he would tinkle it out on the piano. And so if you were to ask him, why does your Passacaglia have to have 175,000 variations? Why is your 5-voice fugue, which you think is the most marvelous thing you've ever done, which he says here in his notes, why is it wonderful? Why? What is amazing about it? What have you accomplished other than the purely technical feat of using up time? And I don't know what his answer would be, because, of course, he would object to the question and think that it was just obnoxious that anybody would even want to ask such a thing in the face of such, dazzling creative genius and all of that stuff. He was a misanthrope. And I think it shows in his music. It's not music written for people to, never mind, enjoy or experience, or it doesn't do anything for you. That's how I really feel about it. I know there are people who like it. I can listen to aimless noodling on the piano for hours. I've done it. That's where the lounge music thing comes in. When you're sitting in a hotel lobby or something like that, and there's this guy playing that kind of quasi-cool mood, atonal jazz stuff, bluesy, and he just goes on and on and on, just wing it along. And Sorabji is asking us not just to hear that in the background, but to actually pay attention to it. And when you do pay attention to it, you find that the emperor has no clothes. And that's what it all boils down to. I mean, this is really naked and empty stuff. And it drones on forever. So, however marvelous the performance is, and Abel Sánchez-Aguilera, is a very fine pianist, and he's edited these things for performance, these scores, and he's devoted God knows how many hours of his life to it. And I have to say, I appreciate the opportunity to hear it. I really do. I think that when somebody puts in that kind of effort and work and presents something as lovingly as Aguilera does here, he deserves credit. He deserves credit for the time and the effort that went into it, and for the insight he brings to it. And I give him full props for presenting this in, I don't know if you'd call it optimal. I really don't, but in a very persuasive way, about as much as you can. But it's kind of like in law. When you have a motion for summary judgment, you have to assume that all of the facts are true, and that there are no issues of fact that need to be resolved, but that everything in the complaint, even if you assume it's true, it doesn't amount to enough to justify continuing, and therefore you are justified in rendering judgment. That's how I really feel about this. I'll take everything his friends say about him, his passionate followers say about him, as given, as valid, that these are are massive contrapuntal edify or edifices or whatever they are, and and that they have beautiful moments, and that sometimes he has great ideas that, last 2 or 3 seconds. And, all of that is a given, but it doesn't make great music. It doesn't make music you should spend your time listening to. And that's how I feel about this. Sorry, but that's how I feel about it. And so I would not be honest if I didn't warn those of you who can't sit down and listen to hours of empty pianistic noodling that this is probably not for you. And that's the truth, as they say in the old business. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Toccata Terza is coming. Get ready.